Hey, good evening, Scott. Not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. Get ready to do some practice.
Right on. I haven't started streaming yet, but we can kick it off here. Welcome, everybody, to the North American Race Room coverage of the Mid-Ohio Sports Circuit. I'll be your host for tonight, Scotty G. Right now we have Jared Svedek in the booth with us. Jared's going to take us around a couple laps here in a few minutes once he gets out on track. We're going to cover the location, the cars are going to be in tonight's race, and a little bit about the track momentarily. So like I said before, we're in Mid-Ohio, full track. Tonight, the air temperature is a balmy 21 degrees Celsius, with the track being 30 degrees. We have wind at 2 kilometers an hour, and the track, as always, is sunny and dry. Where is Mid-Ohio Racetrack, you ask yourself? Well, I can give you an answer. I'm going to pull a picture of the Earth here, and on the Earth, we're going to have a continent. Hopefully it wants to zoom in on it. There we go. Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Here it is in all its glamour. As you can see, they have an on-site ATM and safety parking if necessary. Tonight's classes are two. We have P2 prototypes, which involve the Chevy Daytona prototype, the Radical SR9 AER, and the Radical SR9 Judd. They also have the DMD P21 as well as the Mistral tonight. Starting off with the Chevy prototype, with 600 horsepower, pushing 1,100 kilograms of car, running on a V8 rear-engined, not a front engine car like you would expect from a Chevy. The composite car is tube frame construction and quite light running. That's it for the closed, or sorry, it's not it for the closed-top cars. For the open-top cars, we have the Radical sports cars. If you've ever seen these, these are purpose-built go-karts for the very rich folks who like to get out and have some fun. They're running a little less power, about 475 pounds, but they're also almost 200 kilograms lighter. Again, running a V8, and they are as well mid-engined. The Radical Judd boasting just a slight push on that power and has an inline 4 turbocharged flat 4 in it. So a little bit different power setup for the Judd, but that turbo makes a ton of power, and it makes for a very interesting torque curve coming out of corners. Not to be left out, we also have the Mistral, has a rear-engined V8 pushing 400 horsepower, so naturally aspirated V8 pushing the Mistral. And lastly, the DMD, which is a V6. This one here is, I believe it is not turboed either. It's 450, and again, pushing 970. So those are your 5 car types for the P2 class. Moving over to the GTR2s. This class here are all saloon-style cars. As you can see, they're closed-top vehicles, and we're going to get into those here. First off, we have the BMW with 540 horsepower, which is a ton. V8 front engine. This thing is a monster. So it's one of quite a few endurance races, including the Nürburgring 24-hour, and it is lighter than the BMW production cars because it doesn't have all the bells and whistles inside. From North America, we have the Pratt & Miller Cadillac CTS VR. This one here's got over 500 horsepower, a little bit of a heavier car, again rear-engined. This thing's quick. If you've ever seen a CTS in real life, they make a ton of power and they don't sound like they're doing much work when they're making it. Corvette also showing up with a 5.5 V8, pushing 525 horsepower. We'll see a couple of these are on the track tonight. I've got 3 in the queue so far, so keep an eye out for that Corvette. We also have the P45 Competizione. It's an exotic racing car, and it comes with a V8 Ferrari 430 GT2 engine. It's pushing 500 horsepower out of that little V8, and Getting a little bit of screen judder here. I'm not sure if you guys are picking up on that. No, you're not. That's good. Yeah, so this one here, we may not see too many of them. They not too popular in race room, but definitely a joy to watch. And last but not least is a Porsche. You can't have a GT class, I don't think, without a Porsche in it. This one here is running that flat 6 engine in the back, and it has a great bounce to the car. I believe it's almost 50-50 perfect, even though the engine does hang out past the rear wheels. So that little flat 6 is making over 450 horsepower and is rear wheel drive. So that's your class cars tonight. Looking at the track real quickly. From the sky, this isn't quite the exact north orientation of it, but you have the start-finish line moving up to turn 1 in this clockwise rotation, down into the keyhole, around the start line, down around China Beach. We have corners 4, 5, 6, and then into the S's, and then down into Thunder Valley. The last corner section being the carousel, which is one of the more difficult ones, so we should see some very interesting lines coming into that last corner as we jump across the start-finish line. Going back into race room now, we are going to have a sit-in with our friend Jared Svetek, who is driving the BMW. If I can just find him on the track here. Drop event info. Jared, are you there?
Yes, sir. I am Scott.
Okay. Thanks for coming on out, and thanks for letting us get a little ride along. And we're just in time for him to cross the start-finish line. So as you can see, we're crossing the start-finish into turn 1 here, coming up the straight stretch into the keyhole. Jared, what made you pick the BMW today?
Really no reason at all. I was undecided of what I really wanted to pick. I'm not the best with setups. Someone was gracious enough to drop a setup for this car, so here I am. There was no sign behind it whatsoever.
Right on. So this track is a bit more of a high-speed track. They purposely removed some of the corners in order to increase the average lap pace around this track. As you can see, coming on under hard braking into that corner, there is Jared coming around. Did you make any adjustments to your car, or are you just running that stock setup, or that applied setup?
Set applied setup.
Right on. So as we're coming into the S series, you see quite a bit of undulation as you come over the crests into blind corner after blind corner. If there are vehicles that have either spun or have slowed a bit, it's tough to catch them, and you may find yourself into the rear bumper of another competitor very quickly. As Jared comes into the carousel here, quite possibly the hardest corner on the track, especially if you're carrying too much speed. And back again on the front straight. With a solid time of a 1:26.236. Did you toy around with any of the other cars?
I tried out the Cadillac only because I took the Cadillac back at the Imola Endurance, but that was with a straight stock setup. I didn't really mess with anything. And,
right.
Even for here, I tried it with the stock setup. That was a pretty heavy car, so I was finding it very hard to get stopped in enough time to make these turn 4 through the S's, which is probably the hardest part of the course for me. So, yeah, I'm not really great on that course to begin with, so this will be an interesting 90 minutes for sure.
You've had a little bit of practice out on this track, I suppose?
Just a little bit. I'm certainly not a professional. Nor do I claim to be, so it's gonna be interesting.
Well, you're keeping it quite tidy as you went over top of that giant yellow sausage curb there. Not allowing the tires to really fetch up on it.
You'll see that pretty often tonight, I'm sure, by a lot of people.
How do you find the tires are holding up?
I mean, right now, how many laps have I done? 5 laps. The front left will be, I think, a pretty big question mark for everyone.
Yes, especially the P2 class.
Right. So I mean, it gets hot pretty fast, pretty often. So it'll be interesting to see all the strategies that come along tonight.
Absolutely. I think that was Theo Insbury just coming up on the inside of you, followed by Theo Lupu in the Daytona.
Doing my best to not kill anyone as I slowly go around this.
Right on. Warming the tires up.
Yeah, a little bit. They'll be hot, and then Mr. Crew Chief will tell me they're ice cold. So I don't know what to do with them.
Yeah, it's tough. I find this to be a bit tough to keep tires warm, unless you got a very high downforce car. So you can see as we weave down in through Thunder Valley here, the blind crest, that outside sausage curb can upset the car quite easily, putting you off racing line and having lost time for sure. These final corners are probably the most challenging and technical portion of it. Setting yourself up incorrectly for any one of those corners is going to put you offline for the next, unless you're willing to lose pace. And in standard Mid-Ohio fashion, they like to put a blind corner as the first corner of the race and pretty much keep that going throughout the entire track. You may see some of the drivers taking what looks like to be the wrong racing line coming into the keyhole here. Keeping a little bit of a wider line keeps them away from that inside curb, which can cause the cars to lift up slightly, get air underneath them, and push them out to the outside of the track where they may find either marbling or lost time just to touching the grass or what have you. A little puff of smoke from the P2 class in front, a little slight lockup from, I think that was in Innsbury. Jared slips the back end of his BMW out just a little bit. I think this second portion of the track, Sector 2, is probably going to be the spot where you're going to see a lot of time difference for most of the drivers. It's really going to highlight the people who know the track well and highlight the drivers who are comfortable with attacking without knowing what's on the other side of that crest. Any last comments there, Jared, before I step out of the car and have a quick look down the leaderboard?
Not at all. None from me, no.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the in-car exclusive.
You're certainly welcome. I hope people enjoyed that.
Yeah, good luck out there.
Thank you, sir.
So that was Jared Svetek driving the yellow BMW down in the GTR2 class. We're going to start things off in the P2 class with Theo Winsbury, who's currently running around in the Daytona prototype car. You can see the yellow roof on it is going to be the giveaway for him tonight. I think he's the only one running this color scheme. I am incorrect. Mike Belair has jumped in with one as well. So we'll have the two of those to contend for who's who on the track as Theo comes into a bit of lap traffic. Behind we have Theo 2, or Theo Lupu, driving the blue Daytona. These cars are quite rapid around the track. They have become the popular choice as the long straights allow that V8 to make a ton of time. All the way from Argentina, we got Victor Paz coming in. He is taking the taking the inside line here a little bit in his. Excuse me for 1 second. I think I got the wrong car here. I think he's driving the DMD. He's in the Mistral, running the number 8 Mistral car. Apologies for that. I had to double check my spotter sheet there. So yeah, Victor Paz in the Mistral. This is another car that's quite quick. They did put a bit of a balance of performance on this car because it was very quick, so they added 10 kilograms to it for this race. However, a lot of the drivers said this actually is helping things because it's keeping the car a little bit more in line and keeping it from getting away from them in the corners. Sean Patterson is driving one of the Judd Radicals. Sorry, this is not the Judd Radical. This is the AER Radical. You can tell the difference between the two of them by the sound of the turbo. So you don't have that blow-off valve as he's coming through the corners. You have a little bit of a lower note coming out of that car because it is running that V6. Mike Belair is currently parked in pit lane, so we'll visit him once he's back out on track. Mark Sutton has an identical livery with the 4th Daytona prototype. Fellow Argentinian, we have Luciano, I'm going to hopefully pronounce this right, Icazio. He is driving in the start of the GTR2 class in a Chevy Corvette, so the black Thrustmaster of Icazio. Brian Ingalls taking on the Cadillac for an hour and a half. That should be very fun to watch. Luke Filippone, yellow and black Corvette racing. Diego Junges is up in the P2 class. And you hear the slight different engine note from this one here as he's coming around. So instead of having that V8 that the Mistral had, the DMD actually has a V6 in it. So you're going to hear a slight difference in engine note from those two cars. Linda Bigeman in an identical car to Luke Filippone in the Corvette. Rudolf Stein in the second BMW seen of the night, the first one being that of Jared Svetek, who we are going to pull up into next year. Yeah, Rudolf Stein, the one of 3 Canadians in the race tonight. Hopefully we get a good showing from him. As we have Jared Svetek out lapping still. He's improved his time a little bit. He's knocked about a half second out of his old time. He's down to the 125.650. Bernie Puebla in our first of 1, 2, 3, 4 Porsches on the track tonight. So we should see a lot of good racing from those guys. These Porsches, like I said, very well balanced car. Make a great power, and they're also quite wide on the track. So you'll see that there'll be guys struggling to get past them as they're lapping. Caleb Gons in the second. Ooh, going a little bit wide into the gravel there a little bit. In the second Cadillac of the night. Dan Dietering, third BMW. Another rough from Evan Gramke. So the red and white rough of Evan Gramke. Mohamed Aldia, flashers on, ready to race in his BMW. Ian McClure in the third rough of the night. Derek McCord hiding happily behind the Honda sign. I don't think we can get a better view of him right now, but he is also driving a BMW. TJ Sacoccio driving in the Spirit of Daytona, so he is in one of the P2 class cars. He is yet to put a lap down though, so he's at the bottom of our board. Gavin Lambert, he's out there in the fourth and final rough of the night. We haven't seen anybody else come in just yet. We still have 6 minutes 42 seconds of practice, so there's still time for people to drop into the race. Jeff Lacey taking in yet another radical, and he is in the number 7 car, and I believe that is one of the Judds. I'm just going to confirm that in my notes here. Nope. He is, yes, he's in the number 7 Judd. So this one is a V8 again, so quite a noisy little car. Doesn't have the turboed V4 inline 4 in it. So yeah, so 2 V8 Judds are out on the track tonight. And lastly, we've got Ricardo Costa, and he is in the 5th and final BMW. Sorry, make that 6th now. We have a new person out on the track. So let's drop it down the leaderboard here for lap times. Right now, Theo Ensbury is setting out there with the 118.694. Theo Lupo's got a 118.715. And those are your two top speed guys out on the track right now. Slight gap behind them is Victor Paz with a 119.629. And I'm just going to come back to Theodore Ensbury. He just set a 118.694. So less than 0.1 of a second in between those two. Back down into 4th position, we've got the Mistral, Victor Paz, he's putting in a 120.996 right now. And Sean Patterson in the Radical, he's running a 120.996, so they're quite close, those two. Diego Junges is got a 122.281. Mark Sutton, 122.296. 123s all the way down until we get into Lyndon Bigeman, and we're starting to get into the GTR class cars hit this point. So we will see some overlap in the pace of these cars. The very fast GTR3 or GTR2 class car, can keep pace with the back markers of the P2 class. So it should be very interesting to watch those guys lap together on the track, especially when it comes to drafting and passing each other safely, of course. As we are looking at an hour-and-a-half race, pit strategy will be a key here. You don't want to find yourself with either bad tires or not enough fuel to get to the end. So hopefully the drivers have made their choices on if they're going to take just fronts, just backs, all four corners, splash of fuel, or try to make the entire distance without it. But I'm not sure the G2s have the fuel economy in order to do so. So we're just about 3 minutes away, 2.5 minutes away from going into qualifying. I'm just going to take a quick step away and come back. We will get into commentating the qualifying. And in standard YouTube fashion, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more great content like this. All right, just over 19 minutes and 20 seconds of qualifying left here. We're going to watch some action as these cars drop as much weight as possible, including fuel, and try to set the best pace as possible. If you're just joining us, I'm Scotty G. I'll be your commentary for the night. Try to do my best to keep it, keep the action on screen. As always, I may miss things. It happens. I'm sorry, but we got an hour and a half with me. Should be a laugh. I'm just watching the delay here, and we watched Jared Svitek get a little bit messy on the track there near the end of the practice. I think he was just having some fun with this car. As we're currently watching Theo Ensbury out there on his outlap. You can see these Daytonas wag just a little bit under the throttle. These guys are running very low wing and probably engine map 5 to get the most they can out of these cars as they head up the hill into the keyhole. We're just going to stick with Theo for one lap of the track here. As he's in a bit of traffic, he's going to find himself pushing the other car wide here. I think that may be Theo Lupu that he is up against here. As the two of them head back down the hill into turn 3. Mid-Ohio is just 1 year away from its 60th birthday, I believe. It was built in 1962, so it's been in use for quite a while. As we see the car of Theo Lupu spin a little bit on that corner. I'm sure he'll be back out shortly to make up for that. Just having a quick look at the track, we can see the little bit of lap traffic coming out of down into Thunder Valley, I should say. So Jared Svitek, TJ Sakikocho, and I'm not sure who the third car is there. Oh, Luis Lima. So yeah, as they come around the start-finish line into turn 1. So the downside to racing with a bunch of people is qualifying with a bunch of people, and if you have a car in front of you that may be holding you up, it's going to adversely affect your lap time, of course. So Theo Ensbury, keeping with the tradition of going fastest, he is currently holding the top speed right now for the track, and I think that was at 202 kilometers an hour, maybe a little bit more, but safely around as he's cutting a little bit more time out of his sector 1, pulling that clean air over his car. Moving down the leaderboard, we're going to Luis Lima in his Radical. He's as well driving the V8 Radical, as you can hear from the engine note. Working it down into Thunder Valley here. Oh, I'm sorry, he's in the inline 4. You can hear the turbo. I think it was the car behind him's engine note we were hearing. So a massive turbo in this car to generate all that power. So the turbo lag is quite delayed from when you put your foot down to where you're getting the most out of this engine. But he's doing well to keep pace. He's now 1.7 seconds in behind the current leader. As we have a bit of a netcode issue in the car in front of him. That is not a tire heating strategy. It's just a bit of latency. We may see that Cadillac off track and out of the race before it starts up. As you see there, he's just teleporting around on the track. Victor Paz's Mistral running with the light fuel load as he comes up on the back end of a GTR2 class car. Hopefully it doesn't come together with him. As the two head up the hill to the keyhole, he'll use this opportunity to knock the drag off his car as he's taking a draft and hopefully get himself into a position. He says, no, I'm not having that. I'm going to take a minute, collect my thoughts, and get back out where I have a clear lap in front of me. It looks like Luis Lima has left the race, so we will not have him in the race anymore, maybe due to high ping or other issues. Unfortunate, but we still have quite a few racers on the track. I think we're sitting at Yes, 16 GTR2 class and 9. So a total of 25 drivers in tonight's race. That's awesome. We only see 18 names on the left-hand side of your board because only 18 of those folks have set a valid lap time. And until the race start, we won't see the full board populated. Diego Jungas in the not Mistral, the other one. Sorry, these names are killing me right now. The DMD P2. Oh no, he's in the Mistral. I was right. God, come on, Scotty, get it together. Pull your socks up. So he's currently sitting about 4 seconds off the lead lap time. He's going to have to work ahead of him to catch up to that flying car of Theodore Insbury. Victor Paz has now closed the gap. He's within 0.72 seconds of Theo, and Theo Lupu behind by only 0.017. So quite tight between 2 and 3. Castañera is currently holding the lead lap time for the GTR2 class cars in his Corvette. As you can see, he's bringing it around neatly, coming down the hill into the carousel and away down the start finish. So we'll see what he pulls away with here in sector 3. A 122.584, which is giving him a great bit of a gap over the car behind. He's now 0.1 seconds ahead of Luciano Icazo in the Thrustmaster Corvette. So right now the Corvettes appear to have a little bit of a lead as far as lap times go. Rudolf Stein taking the lead BMW around the track right now. He's running with a 123.308. Caleb Gons, the invisible Cadillac right now, currently hiding behind the Honda billboard, is about to head back out on the track. As you can see him peeking out there in the black, white, and red livery. He's running a 123.525, so not far off from Rudolph. Luis Dominguez from Mexico driving the Corvette. This is the Daytona prototype. As he tries to find pit entrance, has to take a little bit of a backup here, hopefully not messing up and getting on the track a little bit. And making some minor adjustments to his aero as he pulls into pit. Brian Ingles in the second Cadillac of the night. So we have 2 Cadillacs. Now, we used to have 3, we are down to 2. He's running a 124.4 flat. So great times there from Brian Ingles. Just behind him is Luke Filippone in the yellow Corvette. And the onboard commentary driver of the night is Jared Svedtek, as he pushes his Deutsche Post BMW around the track. I think he's taking a moment to make some adjustments before getting back out there. We have 11 minutes left in the qualifier, so plenty of time for these guys to get out, find an open spot in the track, and set down their best. Like I said before, these guys are taking a light load, so they may only have 2 or 3 laps in the tank. Get out there, get a hot lap, get back in, refuel, start again. Do as much as possible. Fresh tires and all that. Evan Gramke just missing him, as we're seeing the wrong car here. He's just down your pit lane there a little bit to the left, as he's probably checking over his settings to make sure he's getting the wing properly set up, as Gavin Lambert finds the wall and is doing some aero adjustments of his own. Dan Dietering, P12 right now, he's holding in at a 127.191 as he's heading towards the keyhole. And Derek McCork coming across the start-finish line in turn 1, holding P13 up with his BMW. Hey, Pueblo looks like he's struggling a little bit out there right now. He's only done a couple of laps, a handful. He has having a bit of trouble keeping it in between the white lines as he comes up on that big yellow sausage curve going into Thunder Valley. These flat sixes do put out a lot of power, and with that you got to make sure you keep the nose pointed in the direction that you want to be going instead of the direction the car wants you to be going. So he's got a fight on his hand for tonight. He should move up the leaderboard if he can set himself a lap time. Jeff Lacey, he has not put in a lap yet either. I think he may have stepped out just to have a quick pre-race nap. And he maybe find himself starting at the back of the P2 grid. More to follow on him. Lastly, Ricardo Costa in the BMW is also sitting in pit. Again, he may be checking over his settings or stepping away to get prepared for tonight's race. An hour and a half sitting here commentating is one thing. An hour and a half of driving these cars is completely a different story. The tire choices tonight, you have soft and hard for the GT classes, or GTR classes, and I believe it's only a single tire type for the P2 class. Welcome to the stream. If you haven't said hi yet, go ahead and say hi in here. If you guys have anything you want to put up in the comments, I'll try to keep track of it and mention it on the stream if it has anything to do with the stream itself. And to Zoltan, I'm not interested in seeing your toe. If you want to see Zoltan's toe, it is on the Discord. It's terrifying. He did a number on himself. I think he was trying to kick the side of his bed or something in the night. And to Zoltan, I'm not interested in seeing your toe. A little bit of off track there for, I think that was Jared Svetek's yellow. Yes, it was. It was Jared Svetek's yellow BMW. Came together a little bit with Luciano Caso. Unfortunately, in the keyhole, both cars losing their line and their times being invalidated. Nice quick peek at the track map again. You see we are spaced out much more nicely as we were earlier. Only tight spots on the first straightaway as the Radical of Jeff Lacey is coming up in behind and passing Derek McCorg. So Jeff Lacey finally getting his door closed and getting in the car and on the track. Anybody paying attention, they would know the Radicals don't have doors, so you could jump in through the top. Kind of the Dukes of Hazzard style. We will hop on board with Jeff. So you hear the V8 of Jeff's car, much different engine note than the V6, the inline 4 of the other Radical that's running the turbo. If you haven't had a chance to drive these cars in game, they are a blast. They handle quite well. They have a tendency to understeer a little bit, but if you can keep air flowing over the kit on the front, you'll find a ton of time on that track. As Jeff Lacey comes across the start-finish line with a time of 1:20.615, so that's not bad for your first lap out. He's sitting in P5 now, 2.4 seconds off the 1 minute 18 seconds of Theo Ensbury. Theo Lupu managing to pull in just over half a second behind him, and then there's a 1 second gap as Lacey goes a little bit oversteer going into the keyhole, which is easy to do if you touch that inside curb. So he'll be back out to improve on that on the next lap. We'll come back to Jeff. Sean Patterson in the other Radical, climbing in the cockpit with him. Currently sitting in P6. His seat was just usurped by Jeff Lacey on that last flying lap. We'll see if Patterson has a rebuttal here. Coming into the final straight. Doesn't look like he's going to catch it on this one. He's got a 121.76 as he puts quite a bit of lock to get in through corner 1. It's a very high-speed corner, even though it's quite tight. As you see the fans waving the flags over top of the hill. Down in the P2 class, things have quieted down quite a bit. Luciano Icazo has taken the lead position in his Thrustmaster Corvette. Behind him, Lyndon Bingaman is still on track, trying to best him. The two of them are about 0.3 seconds apart, so not a lot of gap in between those two. That should be very great racing at the pointy end of this track. Rudolf Stein's BMW, he's less than 0.2 seconds in behind the car in front of him, as he has a little bit of a long run into the start of China Beach. Caleb Gons in his Cadillac and Brian Ingalls are taking a position 4 and 5. Luke Filippone in his Corvette sitting in 6th place. He's running at 124.429 right now. Just in behind him, Bernie Puebla with a 125 flat. And Jared Svetek with a 125.16. The middle of this pack is getting very tight here. Looks great for some fun racing. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cars within a second of each other for qualifying times. So great stuff from that bunch. 15 cars in the GTR2 class and 9 cars in the P2 class. The only driver out there who has not set a lap time yet is Ricardo Costa. I think somebody should probably go give him a shake to see if he's still sleeping. He's got 2 minutes 47 seconds to get out there and do 2 laps. I don't think he's going to be able to achieve a lap time tonight, so he will be starting at the back of the grid. As we watch Victor Pass come across the start finish line with a time of 118.856, so not his best, but still good enough to be within 1 second of the lead. So he's got enough time in the car to do 1 last lap, as he neatly brings that Mistral around the keyhole and down the hill. Jeff Lacey putting in work in his Radical, going green in Sector 1 and Sector 2. If you're seeing green on the screen, that's telling you that that's that person's best lap time. If it's going purple, that's telling you it's the best on the track. So he's pushing himself harder and faster. He's gone from P4 up to P5, sorry, up to P4 as he comes across the start finish line with a 119.656. So he'll retain that same place, but he's cut 0.3 seconds out of his last lap time. So good stuff from Jeff Lacey in his Radical V8. Mark Sutton into the last few corners of his flying laps. He's holding at a 120.469 right now. Let's see if he can better himself. I don't think it's going to happen because if you look at the bottom of your screen, there's no sector information, which tells you that he has gone off track and such invalidated his lap. So he's going to pull off on the grass here and probably cut the engine. Sean Patterson is still out on track and is lapping happily. He's setting his best times as he comes around through the carousel, putting the power down. We have an immobilized car in front of him here as he goes a little bit wide. And so he sets his best time of 120.47, which jumps him up into position 5. So even with that overtake at the start-finish line, we see some great stuff from Sean Patterson, eking out a P5 start for the Canadian. Wonderful stuff. Looking at this, we got Theodore Insbury, Victor Paz, Theo Lupu, Jeff Lacey, Sean Patterson, Mark Sutton, TJ Sacocho, Louis Dominguez, Diego Jungas doing the P2 class, Luciano Icazo, Lyndon Bingaman, Rudolf Stein, Caleb Gons, Brian Ingalls, Luke Filippone, Bernie Puebla, Jared Svetek, Mohamed Aldia, Ian McClure, and Evan Gramke doing the GTR3 class. And as we scroll slowly down, Derek McCord, and they're not going to get to the bottom. They're actually going to cut it short. Derek McCord, Gavin Lambert, Dad Diedring, and Ricardo Costa making up the rest of the pack for the GT3 class. I tried. Hopefully I got everyone's names right. Let's get to racing. Mid-Ohio, again, 2 kilometers, sunny and dry. Moved a little bit to the later in the day, sort of afternoon time. Air temperatures riding at 18 degrees Celsius, 31 degrees on the track. As the cars bounce into position here from the pits, everybody's hopefully putting race fuel in. Muhammad Audia turning his flashers on, making sure everyone knows he's back there. Sitting on pole, Theo Ensbury in his Daytona. The cars all bounce. The leaderboard's populated. We are lights on and lights out. 1.5 hours at Mid-Ohio as we pull off into T1. So far things are looking fairly tidy, not too much damage. I'm just going to switch to auto director to see if anything crazy happens. Cleanly out of T1, now down into the keyhole. This is where things could get interesting. Seeing a lot of red and yellow in the back of the leaderboard here as the cars come around. Luke Filipponi in mid-pack. Everybody keying it for the most part neat and tidy. We have a Cadillac that's just disappeared from the track. Not sure where he went. We'll see if he comes back on the track at any point here. I think he may have been kicked from the server. Nope, he's still in there. So that's going to add a little bit of interest to the mix as those Cadillacs bounce around. Luke Filipponi taking a little bit of damage and sliding wide off. Hopefully he can avoid the gravel here. Yes, TJ Sakocchio losing speed here because of that touch on the rear quarter panel of the Porsche. I believe that was Bernie Puebla. So unfortunate turn of events there for Luke Filipponi. He's got an hour and a half to make that up though. Louis Dominguez, we saw in the foreground there, he did go off track as well and is continuing to. He picked up a bit of grass and dirt on those slick tires. Makes life a little bit rougher for him. So I hope he can find it reversed, get himself turned around, and get back on the track. Moving back up the leaderboard, Theo Lupu being chased down by Victor Paz in his Mistral. Looking over the rear wing here. Hopefully you can hear me over the engine noise as these two guys battle it out. Tight together, these two. Theo Winsbury, he's got a little bit of work ahead of him still, and he's got 2 cars that are trying to make time on him, in Theo Lupu and Victor Paz. Much further down the board, Bernie Puebla is battling with the other Porsche of Ian McClure, and behind him, Derek McCord, BMW, is trying to make room for himself to get around and get out in front of these two as they head down the back straight. Yes, cold tires are a factor in the first few laps. Another factor a lot of drivers forget to remember is fuel. So you're going to take on up to 100 liters of fuel. Your car is going to weigh quite a bit, and depending on where your fuel cell is, it could be in the nose of the car like the Porsches, or it could be mid-engine or mid-car, some of the other vehicles. You're going to find a very different handling car as you go around. So these guys are probably fighting a fair bit of understeer until they start dropping that weight and turning it into speed. Rudolf Stein's BMW chasing down Jared Svetek as those two come in through Thunder Valley. Out and around the carousel and onto the front straight. Jared making a great launch out of there as he pulls up ahead. Jared now chasing down Brian Engel's Cadillac. 4P4, I believe it is. Yes. So they say battle for P12. That's a misnomer because they're taking all the cars on the track into consideration for this. So he's P4 for his class. We're gonna keep it like that. And we won't try to mix you up with what the battles are. So Luciano Ocasio is taking on Lyndon Bingaman. Those two are quite close right now as they come down the hill into turn 4. This rising and diving section here can be a little bit unnerving, as I stated before in practice. As it's tough to see who's on the other side of that hill. On board here with Ocasio as he's chasing down Lyndon Bingaman. Just in front of them we have Caleb Gons and his Cadillac. So these three down through Thunder Valley. There's a little bit of judder from Nakazo's car, probably because he's streaming from almost the other side of the planet. And down into the start-finish line. So yes, a high ping will make things interesting for those two as they come around. Caleb Gons in the Cadillac is currently the lap leader right now for the GTR2 class. And behind him, the two Cadillacs. And then we have a P2 car. I believe that is... I think it's... Diego? I want to say it's Diego. Yep. Diego Jungas. So he's just tucked in behind those two Corvettes right now as they make their way down. Down further, we have a great battle going on for P9, P8, and P7. So if you can count it, we got four Porsches battling it out right now. So they can tell it's some tight racing. A little bit off in the grass goes Luke Filippone. Sorry, no, Gavin Lambert. So Gavin's got some time to make up for him. Rennie Puebla just right in behind Ian McClure, who is right on the tail of Evan Gramke. Ooh, we have a bit of off here. Derek McCork has spun off, as well as Louis Dominguez again in his Daytona prototype. So significant loss of time for both of those guys. As you can see at the bottom of your board, Derek McCord is now running about 5 seconds off the car in front of him. It was unfortunate for Derek, but here we watch Muhammad Aldia as he battles for position with Dan Dietering and their two BMWs. Up the board further, Rudolf Stein is door-to-door with Jared Svetek as those two come around the keyhole. Jared's going to pressure him now in the back straight, hopefully making some time off the draft of Stein's BMW. How's it going, Rangy? So it looks like Stein will hold off Jared for that long run down the back straight. Further back, Ricardo Costa is currently battling with Gavin Lambert and Luke Filippone. So the BMW, Porsche, Corvette run going right now. Corvette leading those three as they come down into Thunder Valley. TJ Sicoccio getting a slowdown penalty for going off track. Probably lose a little bit of time. If you don't serve that, you end up with a drive-through penalty, and every driver can tell you that's the worst kind of penalty because it slows it down. Worse still is a stop and go, especially if you have presets for getting tires and things, because it won't serve your penalty. You just end up taking new tires and then having to come around and try it again. Up in the P2 class, Sean Patterson is chasing down TJ Sicoccio. The scream of these cars, we're going to hop into the cockpit. A little bit of squirm under braking as the sausage curve upsets the car of Sean Patterson. Making a ton of time there on TJ as they come into the last few corners here. We'll see what happens as they come around the carousel. TJ going a little bit wide, manages to keep it under control. Coming around the left-hander onto the front straight. And now TJ's making the big gap by putting down the high power. Love another crack at it here from TJ's perspective, looking over his rear wing. Over his rear wing, please. There we go. As you see the head tilt of Sean Patterson coming out of the keyhole. This is where the Daytona is going to really shine, is in these straights because of the power. As TJ finds grass. Strange line from TJ there as he goes on the inside. Manages keeping it away from Sean though, as the two are about a second apart. Can't get on that power, so you can hear the engine notes quite quiet of the Daytona prototype. And it's not until he gets back into the straights that he can really start to try to gap Sean Patterson's Radical. Down the board, Luke Filippone battling it out with Bernie Puebla now. So he had a little bit of off-track time, which put him back on the track. As the two are door-to-door coming down the back straight. Let's see if they can keep it tidy here coming into turn 4. And yes, Luke will slip by Bernie Puebla as they come down into the China Beach. Up at the front end of the GT2 class, we have the Cadillac of Caleb Gons being chased down by the Corvette of Luciano Icazo. As those two cross the start-finish line, coming into turn 1, heavy braking, and no, you're not seeing him lose control. We have a little bit of net issue right now, just because of the proximity of these drivers around the world. So you will see a little bit of notching and jumping of the cars, hopefully not resulting in a crash, as Luciano Icazo takes P1 away from the previous leader, Caleb Gons. Down a little further, the battle for P4 between Rudolph Stein and Brian Ingles is going on. We're just going to pop back up into the P2 class here. We have some off-track happening. A yellow flag. Ooh. So that was Dan Diedering's BMW had just gone off track as those two P2 cars sliced their way around him. Luckily, got away both unscathed in the smoke of Dan Diedering's spin. Just jumping back up to the front of the pack here. Caleb Gons is not letting it go very lightly as the P2 car of Sean Patterson is coming up behind them. So Sean Patterson will be looking for a gap here as these GTR2 cars are not quite as quick around the corners as those prototype cars with their high aero kits. And we watch as Sean Patterson makes a wide gap now and splits the GT2 class cars of... Sorry, that was not Patterson. That was Diego Yungas. Splits the two GTR2 class cars. Looks like we got a tight battle again between two Porsches and a Corvette coming across the front straight. Bernie Puebla, Evan Gramke, and Luke Filippone. The three of these are 1.5 seconds apart between the three of them as they make their way up to the keyhole. Your current race leader, Theodore Insbury, in the SunTrust Daytona prototype, is 1.8 seconds away from that blue prototype car you see just off in the distance of Theo Lupu. Theo is managing almost a 3-second gap on Victor Paz in the Mistral, and Victor is keeping Jeff Lacey at bay at almost a 3-second gap. Those front four are gapping the next driver, TJ Sococcio, at about 10 seconds, and Sean Patterson being 2 seconds behind him. Mark Sutton is almost 9 seconds now down as they complete 10 laps around Mid-Ohio Racetrack. Diego Yungas is still on his 9th lap, yet to cross the start-finish line. He is about 20 seconds off the pace from the car in front of him. And Luis Dominguez making up the last one. He is 28 seconds down from the pack. So he's had a little bit of off-track time. It's cost him dearly, but he's working to make that up. Battle for P4 still rages on between Rudolph Stein and Brian Ingles as these drivers make their way down to turn 2. As you can see on the left-hand side of your track, there is a chicane there. That was taken out to improve lap times. It is put in for some road course driving and what have you, just to slow down the drivers before they get to that long hairpin, prevent them going off long and into the wall. Luca Filippone down in 8th place is putting a charge on Ian McClure as those two make their way around the keyhole. So now we will see that V8 of the Corvette really put the power in with the added reduction in drag, and we should see him try to make the pass here on the Porsche of Ian McClure. Just behind them we do have Luis Dominguez in the prototype car doing his best to keep tidy as he comes in between the Corvette and the Porsche. Jared Svetek finding time in Sector 2 here as he's closing in on Rudolf Stein now. He's at 0.2 seconds in behind. As the two are door-to-door going into the final corner. Rudolph finding a little bit of time there on the cleaner line, and he is away. So Garrett's gonna have to try again to make time up there on Rudolph. So he's now down to 0.8. Up at the front of the pack, bit of a turn of events. I think we got a little bit of slide from Theo Rinsbury. To see another one there coming over the cones. Theo Lupu is making a little bit of time on him, so we're gonna jump on the nose of Theo's car. As they're held up by lap traffic, so this is gonna be the deciding factor now. Theo Rinsbury is gonna really have to put the power down to try to get him in and around the battle of, I believe that is. Yeah, Luke Filippone and Ian McClure. So the Corvette of Luke Filippone on the left-hand side of your screen, and the Porsche of McClure just going by. So neatly around Theo Lupu and Theodore Rinsbury as they come down into the corners of Thunder Valley. Theo keeping the pressure on Theo. As they're able to really get the power down here into the last sector now. Climbing over that left hand. As we watch from Theo Rinsbury's position. He's now managed to get a great leap there and pulling away nicely from Theo Lupu. The green and black of Jeff Lacey closing the gap on Victor Paz. He's now down to 0.4 seconds. As those two make their way around. Lap traffic now becoming a factor for these P2 cars. They're going to have to pick and choose their way through and hopefully not make a collision with the drivers. As you can see, Luke Filippone did make the pass on Ian McClure as those four cars make a tight bit of work getting out onto the back straight. Yes, we have Theo Squared leading the pack right now, followed by Victor Paz. Jeff Lacey's now 0.08 seconds as they're door-to-door. And all the cars have disappeared from the track. And we've driven through a wall. Now we're all back on track. Oh my god, what is happening? Victor Paz has disappeared from the race. And that's insane. Victor Paz is back now. So there we go. We got 6 seconds now on Jeff Lacey. I'm not sure what happened with the timing. We'll keep an eye on this. Hopefully that timing sorts itself out, and it has. We're now down to a 1 second gap. I think we had a bit of a server lurch there, as you saw the cars flying off track, going through the walls and disappearing. So thank goodness we did not lose the race. High ping will do that. Caleb Gons, P2 for the GT2 class, is 1 second down from Luciano Acazo, as these guys make their way around China Beach. So that black, a little bit of hood damage there, as we can see on Caleb Gon's car. So he did find either a barrier or the back end of another car, but he's doing well to keep that Cadillac on track and fighting for the position 1. Jeff Lacey's caught that time up. We're back onto the rear straight here as they make their way down into turn 4. We do have an off car of Jared Svetek as he's finding gravel, so we'll watch Jared as he carefully gets back out on the track here, hopefully not colliding with anybody. Only losing 2 positions there to the battle of Luke Filippone and Ian McClure, so he should be able to stay in the battle and make his way back up to P6. Jeff Lacey was not able to make opportunity of that incident and remains at half a second down on Victor Paz. Way up at the front, the blue Daytona of Theo Lupu is pushing on Theo Rinsbury as these two come around. And I think it is a server gap issue because now everybody has hood damage. So just ignore the damage you're seeing on the cars. They're not injured. They've got server lags, so it artificially put aero damage on the cars. So we'll keep an eye on that. So far, nobody has crashed into anybody else that I've seen except for some off-track incidents. Looks like we may have a pass attempt here from Jeff Lacey as he is outbraked by Victor Paz coming into turn 4. Going down into turn 5 over the crest here. You can't put power down here. If you get on it too hard, you will spin the car out and find yourself looking at that front end loader instead of at the back end of the competitor in front of you. Down in the GT2 class, Muhammad Aldia is going to try a move on the inside here against Gavin Lambert. Gavin is not having it. He is closing the door on him a little bit as they make their way around that same corner. So now Aldia with the flashers on to kind of throw Gavin Lambert off. And Gavin says no thank you as he pulls away. Back up at the P2 class, lap traffic again has plagued Victor Paz as the two come around turn 1. Less than 0.1 seconds in between the two of them, heading up the hill. Jeff Lacey's going to try it again on the outside now, going into the keyhole. Victor's Mistral is planted and safely away from that attack as well. Jeff Lacey, door to door with Victor Paz. Victor's got a slight bit of power on this one and outbraking coming into turn 4. So we had 4 changes in position on this, that straight alone. This is about as tight as it gets. Tighter than 2 coats of paint. As Victor Paz finds a great line through there and manages to put 0.6 seconds on Jeff Lacey's Radical. Ricardo Costa immobilized on the side of the track, waiting for some cars to come by. Looks like he overbraked a little bit and just lost control of his car. Showing 100% damage, I don't believe it. I think his car is in good working order. Like I said before, I think we had a little bit of a server hiccup and it's damaged everybody's cars artificially. Up at the very front, now down to 0.16 seconds in between the front 2 cars of Theo Insbury and Theo Lupu, as those two gingerly get back on the power, pushing these Daytona prototypes. Theo Insbury managing to hold Lupu off here as they come around this cresting left-hand turn. Again, not getting on the power too early. Theo Lupu with a little bit of false windscreen damage there. As they're working their way through Sector 3 here. Flying by the grandstands and the fans with the air horn. That one guy who brings the air horn to a race. Across the start-finish line of the game. It looks like Ricardo Costa has gone off again. Yes, he has. This is going to put 3 cars, Diego Yunguez, Luciano Icazo, and Gons all on the yellow flag status. So passing is disallowed under yellow flag. If you do pass, you will have to give that position back. If you don't, you may end up with a drive-through or stop-and-go penalty. As Ricardo Costa finds his way back onto the track and is safely away again. So Ricardo's struggling a little bit out there, especially with that that hard braking into that corner number 2. Just going to look over the shoulder here of Ricardo as he watches 1, 2, and 3 cars just pull in behind him there. So that was Theo Insbury. Oh, sorry, that was Victor Paz, Jeff Lacey, and I believe it was the Corvette of Lyndon Bingaman coming around behind him. as Caleb Gollins finds himself off track. Not sure if there was collision there, but he's reversing out and trying to get back lined up on track as he drops down to P3. So he's lost one position in his Cadillac. Lyndon Bingaman overtaking him in his yellow Corvette. His car looking absolutely mutilated. We have to ignore that. It says that he's sitting at a high amount of damage, but I don't think that's the case as he heads down into pit lane. We are just at over 1 hour away from race finish as we see the first couple cars pull into the pit lane here. Up at the front of the race, we have Theo Lupu and Theodore Ensbury battling it out. These two have been within a second of each other now for about, I would say, about 6 or 7 laps. There has been a little bit of outside that 1 second margin, but for the most part, those two have been quite close. 7 seconds back from them, we have Jeff Lacey chasing down the Mistral of Victor Paz. So we have a V8 battle here raging on. Actually, I believe the Mistral is running a flat 6. I'm just going to double check that. Nope, Mistral is running the V8 as well. So they're both pushing the V8 car right now, and it's a bit of a shootout as we make our way down into the carousel. Down in the GT2 class, Jared Svetek pushing hard against Ian McClure. These two have been back and forth quite a bit on the track. Jared did find the gravel a little bit earlier, but he's now battling his way back. He was in P8, now down to P7, down into P6, forcing Ian McClure wide on that corner as he overtakes. We'll see if Ian McClure has a rebuttal for him here. It doesn't look like it as they open the door to allow the P2 car to come in through. A P2 car belonging to, I believe that is Mark Sutton. Yes, so Mark Sutton splitting that battle up a little bit and offering Jared a bit of cover from attack from Ian McClure. Evan Gramke's flying lizard car working his way down towards Bernie Puebla in the gray Porsche, or the white Porsche, sorry, in the front of your screen. Again, another race that's been within a second of each other all the way around. So pit strategy will become a factor for these guys. The difference between P9 and P6 is about 5 seconds, so not a lot of time in between those three. The second closest battle of the night right now is waging on between these two gentlemen as lap traffic again causing a headache for Victor Paz as he tries to defend against Jeff Lacey. Jared's going to make the most, or sorry, Jeff's going to make the most of this opportunity from that slight missed line just due to lap traffic. Again, Victor Paz with that just fantastic braking, making a gap, making room, and holding Jeff Lacey off as they come down the hill. Diego Yungas in the car in front of them there, as being lapped by the two of these guys, causing a little bit of stress there for Jeff Lacey as they almost got collide. Jeff will be happy to be around him and on his way. Side by side coming out of the final corner across the front straight. So Jeff Lacey away. Back on the chase against Victor Paz. Mohamed Odia and his BMW, the smooth operator, tries to get on the inside here of the Porsche of Evan Gramke. Evan blocking nicely as they head down into turn 4. Mohamed Odia putting work into his flashers as he's coming around this right-hand corner. Trying to get Evan's eyes off the track and into his rearview mirror, but I don't think Evan's going to fall for it tonight. Evan is going to make a pass, however, on the Cadillac of Caleb Gons, who's thrown Mohammed a little bit offline, and offered a gap up for Evan. So he's now pulled away. He's got about a second ahead of Mohammed Adia. Up in position 3, Rudolf Stein in his BMW. He has about a 6-second gap of the car in front of him. And yeah, so Lyndon Bingaman has got 18 seconds on him. Yes, Adia loves flashing his headlights. If you've ever raced with him, incredibly clean driver, but will make you look to see where he is all the time. No matter how good you think you're going to be on the track, you're going to be constantly watching your mirrors because he's right there with you. So I think Mohammed came into this race a little bit underprepared. He's usually quite ready to put down some good lap times, set up, track knowledge, all of the stuff. But I think he was a little bit underprepared for this race, and it's showing us as he's currently residing in P10, making some good battles, but he's having to put the work in. We just saw Mark Sutton go in and around him. Was that Mark Sutton? No, that one was Theo Insbury, sorry. Theo Insbury is now coming into lap traffic with him. So here's your P1 of Theo Insbury. He's made quite a nice margin now. He's 1.5 seconds ahead of Theo Lupo in his blue Daytona prototype. Victor Paz managing to eke out a 1-second lead on Jeff Lacey. So those two are still close, but Jeff's no longer attacking Paz with the same effort he was before. And we just saw it down here, Mohammed just making that pass on Evan as Evan goes a little bit wide on that last corner. As the flashing lights are getting a workout of the P9 car now. Bernie Puebla and Ian McClure, these two were quite close together on the track. And have now gapped out a considerable amount. I think Ian McClure lost it a little bit. He's now 2 seconds behind Bernie. As Theo Lupu's Daytona prototype charges up on the inside of him. Jeff Lacey back with him. And his X Markets black and green Radical. Ooh. Victor Paz taking damage from that BMW. I believe that was Rudolph. No, it was not Rudolph Stein. Mohammed Adia. So up in the rear end of Mohammed Adia's car, unfortunately, Victor Paz allowing Jeff Lacey to get around on the outside of him. So a bit of a touch there. I'm sure Mohammed was trying to stay out of the way, but Victor may have had a lurch in his feed where he thought Adia was where he shouldn't have been. So a slight reverse in order there. Jeff Lacey taking up P3 now as they're coming up on the Porsches of Ian McClure and Bernie Puebla. Safely around on this tight right-hander. Ooh, Victor going a little bit wide there, losing almost a second to Jeff Lacey. Pit time now for Mohammed Adia in his BMW. He's going to jump back up to this battle here for P3. That's that Porsche of Bernie Puebla making life a little bit difficult for Victor Paz as he chases down Jeff Lacey. Back out at the front of your race, Theo Insbury's Daytona. I believe he is coming up on Bingaman. Is it Bingaman? It is not Bingaman. It must be Luke Filippone. It is. P5 car of Luke Filippone. As we see Insbury's Daytona prototype cut in front of him. Under hard braking. Luke will be looking to try to get a bit of a draft, and Innsbury will say no thank you as he charges off into the distance. So you can see just the speed difference here between those two engines and those two vehicles, even though they're making similar power. So Innsbury, the quicker car in that P2 class. Down in P8, chasing after Puebla is Ian McClure, as these two Porsches head down the back straight into the hard braking zone, turning right into P4. Looks like Gavin Lambert has retired from the race. I'm not sure what happened to Gavin. Yeah, we may see it come up in the comments here, but Gavin Lambert off track and out of the race. Hopefully it wasn't incident related. It was you know, something that he couldn't control. He was running a 126.6 lap time, which is mid-pack for the GT2 class. So he would have finished well if he had managed to get to the end of this race. We're just inside 55 minutes until the checkered flag. As Caleb Gons has gone off, I believe, yes, so he's gone off in Thunder Valley. I'm not sure if he's going to come back on track now. Yeah, he's stationary there. So there's a yellow car, and yeah, he's pulled into pits. So we have our second dropout of the night in Caleb Gons. So the Cadillac and the Porsche are now out of the race. We're down to 13 drivers in the GT2 class. And yes, heavy impact there for Caleb Gons as he's into the wall up that straight. DJ Cochio in his Daytona, sitting down in P5. He's got about a 22-second gap between him and Victor Paz. So he's comfortably resting in 5th position. He's got almost 30 seconds on Scott Patterson behind him. And behind Scott we have Mark Sutton. So a little bit of gap out here. Theo Lupu is going to hop in the cabin with him here. I've just seen a bit of overtaking of lap traffic. So that is the lone surviving Cadillac of Brian Ingalls. And I believe that was the BMW of Derek McCord. See how cautiously these cars come over that hill. That rise and fall will bring your gravity of the car down a little bit, center of gravity I should say, and allow air to get up underneath it. And in doing so, you'll end up losing a lot of traction to the rear of your car if you're not set up for tight cornering, which the Theos like to do. They like to have low wing and a car that tips itself into corners more than an understeering car. You see Theo Innsbury making a little pass there. I believe that was on. Nope. Dan Dietering. So the P11 car, Dan Dietering for the GT2 class, being overtaken there by Theo Innsbury. As we watch Theo Lupu make pace on him here. So we're going to see how fast he catches him up here on this long straight stretch. Theo now closing the gap. And now under the heavy braking into this left-hand turn, or right-hand turn, sorry. As you can see, Theo just gapping him quite quickly there and pulling up beside him. So Dan's going to pull over and allow the quicker car of Theo through. Hopefully not coming together with him. There you go. Nice clean pass on the inside from Theo Lupu and safely away. Innsbury's made almost a 5-second gap on Lupu. Now 4, maybe a little bit of a slide there from Innsbury as those two skid off and make their way around. We're 29 laps in to our race here at Mid-Ohio. If you're just joining us, I'm Scotty G. It's for North American Race Room. We're looking at an hour and a half of racing, as we have 2 class battles. We've got P2 prototype cars, and we've also got the GTR2 class. If you're new to Race Room, I highly recommend you check out both these car classes as well as the track itself. The prototype 2 cars are a blast to drive. They have a ton of speed. The radicals handle like go-karts, and if you get down into the GTR2 class, the BMW feels just amazing. The Porsches feel great. The Cadillac are a little bit lardy, but they're fun to drive, and the Corvettes also a blast. They seem very well tuned to this game. As you see, the lead car of Luciano Ocasio coming up behind these 2 battling it out for P8 right now. So, hop on the nose of Ocasio's car. As you can see, the amount of power this V8 has, firing this vet down as it makes this right-hand turn. Smooth accelerator here. Keep it inside. These are lap traffic now, so they shouldn't be putting up too much of a fight for him. At the same time, they should also race their line. We shouldn't see any drastic measures to get out of the way, because it can often lead to collision. Further up the leaderboard, back into the P2 class, Victor Paz is made up a fair bit of time here after that impact with Audia's BMW. He was almost 2 seconds behind Jeff Lacey's, now within 0.7 seconds, 0.8 seconds of that Radical. These two have swapped positions, I think, a total of 8 times since we've first started covering their battle for P3. And what a battle it's been. At the bottom of the P2 class, unfortunately, TJ Secoccio has retired from the race. I am not sure why. TJ, if you are in the stream, please shoot out the reason for retirement. As we have another retirement, and Ricardo Costa, nope, he's not retiring. He's just got it turned around the wrong way. Back on the grass, throwing up a yellow flag. I think Luke Filippone was close to him when that happened, and he is clear of the yellow flag as well, so no injury there to Luke Filippone. This is the fight to watch right now. Victor Paz and Jeff Lacey, as they work to figure out who is going to be P3 in 47 minutes. As they start to take on a bit of lap traffic here. I think that's Rudolf Stein. It is not. I think it was Derek McCorg. Yeah, that was Derek McCorg. Sorry, I was just flicking through the spotter sheet here trying to find the right BMW. We still have 6 BMWs in the race for the GT2 class. One currently is the P3 car of Rudolf Stein. He's got almost a 9-second gap on Brian Ingles in the Cadillac, and about 17 seconds behind Lyndon Bingaman up in 2nd place. So he's comfortable in 3rd position right now. We'll see what pit strategy for him will change his position in the track. And surprisingly tight, racing back at P12 here is Dan Dietering, closing the gap on Muhammad Adia. He's down within a second of him, just peaking now up over 1.2 seconds. As that Cadillac in front of Muhammad is Brian Ingles. So I think Muhammad is working to unlap himself here because he is not in contention with with Brian Ingalls at this time. As you can see, he's backing into his pit position here, so let's going to have a quick look to see what Cazo does with his Corvette. If he's just going to take front tires, back tires, or all four corners. The car will lift up onto air jacks to apply the tires. Unfortunately, we don't get the animated pit crew jumping the wall. So we just get to sit and kind of quietly watch as his car goes from being flat on the ground to jacked up to receive a fresh set of tires. And yes, you can see a flat lift, so that's all four corners are coming off the Corvette Picasso. I think that's going to add about 20 seconds to his pit stop time, which he probably can't afford, but we'll see how the other guys do. If everyone chooses the same pit strategy, then he will probably get away with a P1 chance here for the end of the race. In that time, he's dropped 4 positions now. Lyndon Bingaman in his Corvette is now taking the P1 spot, as he's into the Sector 2 here. For the most part, everyone's been pretty tidy out there. We have a couple off-track excursions. Jared Svetek, Caleb Gollins, and I believe it was Diego Yungas was also finding himself off-tracking. As I say it, Mark Sutton, I think, has just gone off-track. He has. So Mark Sutton losing it in a very high-speed corner. Safely back on track, though, as Sean Patterson pulls in. So Sean's currently holding P5 right now. He's a lap down from the car in front of him, Victor Paz. That's just because he's now in the pit. We'll keep an eye on what sort of pit strategy he takes here. He is taking all 4 corners as well. So yes, all 4 corners for those P2 classes, I think, is a strategy to do, just because of the amount of effort they're having to put in to keep these cars on the track. In an interesting turn of events, Jeff Lacey has now made his way up to Theo Lupu, who's 5 seconds behind Theo Ensbury. It's an insane pace there from Jeff Lacey for the past few laps. He's currently running with a 119.198 is his best, with a 119.838. So he's got about 0.3 seconds per lap faster than Theo Lupu on that last lap. If he continues to go this method, he may find himself up in P2. We are seeing a little bit of yellow flag incident here. We'll see who's causing that. Not sure who's causing that yellow flag. Maybe a bit of off track from Louis Dominguez again. But everyone's back safe on the track here. Dan Dietering down to the pit. Back up in P4 of the P2 class. Victor Paz working hard to chase down Jeff Lacey, who's found himself now in a battle with Theo Lupu. Those two may lose a bit of time, and this is something that Paz can capitalize on as those two drivers go out and around the blue and white of Dan Dietering. I think Theo Lupu's recognized he was being chased a little bit there, and he's managed to open the gap a little bit, as well as to close the gap in front of him as he touches doors with the Porsche of Ian McClure. Sorry, that's not Ian. That was Bernie Puebla. Ooh, off track here as Brian Ingalls finds himself backwards in his Cadillac. He will rejoin. Will he lose time here or position? I don't think he will. Luke Filippone saw that off track and is looking to capitalize on it. I don't think he's going to catch him here. We'll see. I think Brian may have escaped certain death there with that spin. And he's starting to work his way back up again. So yeah, he's safely gotten away from Luke Filippone for now. We have another off track here, a massive off track. We're going to try to find out who this was. So hopefully nobody's going off track there. We can hear a car in the ditch. Who is it? Is it Bernie Puebla? Nope. Muhammad Adia going wide there. I didn't catch who that was that went off track there. But we did have a car off track for a moment, as we see Brian Ingles and his Cadillac going off track yet again. So he is past pit entry and immobilized. We're not sure what's happening with Brian Ingles. We'll keep an eye on that. Not a great spot to stop the car. But if it's broken, it's got to pull over and get off track, which he's done. So he's parked it on the inside of the final corner. It's retirement for Brian Ingles. So both Cadillacs now out of the race. I think he took a fair bit of impact from a collision, which resulted in him having to park that car where he did. So an unfortunate turn of events for Brian Ingles. Your race leader is now in the pits. Theo Winsbury taking all 4 corners of tires for his Daytona prototype. And he's away. So he's down in P4, but that won't last for long, as the 3 cars in front of him need to pit as well. Only 5 seconds gap between the lead 4 cars, or lead 3 cars, sorry. And then it's a 37-second gap to Theo Winsbury back there. Your current race leader is Theo Lupu for the P2 class. And down in the GTR2 class is the yellow and black of Bingaman. So tidy racing there from Linden as he heads down the hill. P7 position in the P2 class is Diego Yungas, as we get yet another off track. I think this may be Derek McCork. Nope. It was Louis Dominguez. So he lost. He did not find the pit entrance and found himself in the ditch. So he's got himself sorted out and he's down to pit safely. Jeff Lacey pitting, taking all 4 corners on his Radical V8, which is now allowing Victor Paz some clean air and hopefully the chance to put a bit of a gap on Jeff Lacey here. Right up at the very front of it all, Theo Lupu, we'll watch to see what happens with him, see if he takes his point. Oh no. If you're watching now, you see on the top right-hand side of your screen, Jeff Lacey has taken a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane. What this means in the next 3 laps, Jeff Lacey will have to go back through pit lane and remain underneath the limited speed. I believe it is of 80 kilometers an hour for Mid-Ohio, which is not fast at all when you consider that front straight. They're usually running around well over 100. So we'll watch here as Theo Lupu comes out of the last corner, not pitting at this point, just using this time to make a little bit of a gap, hopefully. So frustration right now for Jeff Lacey as he's facing about a 20-second slowdown penalty for having come out of the pits a little bit too fast. Yes, F for Jeff, everybody, F in chat. He was pushing hard all the way up into P3 with about a 0.1 second gap on second position, and now he's going to find himself probably about 20 seconds away from contending for the podium spots. So hard on the brakes here for Jeff Lacey, hopefully. 85 kilometers an hour is too fast, I think, coming in. We'll see what happens. If he receives another slowdown penalty, I'm guessing he's probably going to retire from the race. So he's through and away cleanly. No slowdown, second slowdown penalty for Jeff Lacey. That, however, does put him 12 seconds behind this car, the previous race leader of Theo Winsbury, who has the door opened up for him by the car of Sean Patterson. You hear Patterson's car whining. He's coming around here. Trying not to make contact with Lyndon Bigeman in the Corvette. So the P1 of Lyndon right now has a 20-second gap on Rudolph Stein's BMW. Nicaso, Dominguez, Filippone are behind them. Almost a minute gap in between all those guys as we approach the half-hour mark from finish. Yes, it'll be a miracle for Jeff Lacey if Lupu does get a drive-through. I haven't seen Lupu get a drive-through in a very long time, but it's always first time, so. A little bit of space out on the track right now. The closest battle right now is Victor Paz and Lupu. These two have about 3 seconds in between them. And the second closest battle is that of the P2 and P3 positions of Icazo and Stein. But Stein now pulling into pits to get us his fuel and his fresh set of tires for the last 35 minutes of this race. I know it's not interesting to watch, just to see what kind of tire strategy he takes. You can look back at Luke Filippone, who's just behind him. So these two should be somewhat close coming out of the pits. It looks like an all-4 tire strategy for Rudolf Stein. And I'm guessing it's going to be the same for Luke Filippone. This track being a clockwise track is punishing on the front left tire of these cars. So you may see 70% wear on most of the corners, but that front left is probably going to be down closer to, 30% of tire tread left, or even just pure rubber before they start blowing up or losing grip completely. Theo up front here is building a slight bit of a lead on Victor Paz, who is both yet to pit, and Theo says no for one more corner. I don't think these cars have it in them to go the entire distance without fueling, so we'll see what kind of interesting tactic Theo takes for these last few laps around Mid-Ohio. Sean Patterson finding himself around backwards here as he's trying to pick up speed to make a rejoin here, hopefully safely, as he comes back on over the hill. Jeff Lacey out and around the outside of him. These two are not in contention with each other. I think that puts Patterson, yes, back a lap behind, as we see the red BMW of Ricardo Costa trying to muddle along a little bit with that front aero kit, as his car has been struggling tonight. I think he took a bit of impact, which caused some suspension damage, but he's sticking with it. Good on him. The red prototype of Lou Dominguez is tucked in tightly behind the car of Mark Sutton, I believe. Yes, who's up beside the Jared Svetek, as these three make their way into the Sector 3. Almost a touch there from Jared. And Jared giving a wide berth now as these cars start coming in behind. You will see Theo Lupu now coming up on the inside of Jared Svetek, as these guys are trying to get away as cleanly as possible. And there's the Corvette. I believe that's Corvette of Caso, yes. Moving in on Jared Svetek. So some tight racing there, but some great racing, and it all got away clean. And Sean Patterson again being bitten by the off-track bug here. I'm not sure what caused that one. Maybe a little bit of fatigue, or it could be some tire issues. But he's found himself facing the wrong direction again. A battle is starting to form here a little bit in P7 in the GT2 class. Evan Gramke in the Flying Lizard Porsche is starting to make a bit of a drive at the flashing BMW of Mohamed Audia. 0.5 seconds separate these two as they make their way up the first of 3 long straights on this track. It doesn't look like Evan's going to get too much chance here on Mohamed, as they make their way around the keyhole. We'll come back to visit these two in a few minutes.
it would appear that Victor Paz has made his pit stop. He is now 2.3 seconds behind the Daytona of Theo Insbury. Lyndon Bingaman now in the pits. He's going to drop down, hopefully no time, to the guys behind him. He should come out in front of Rudolf Stein, so we'll have an eye on that. We'll keep looking on here from the front view
of Rudolf Stein's BMW. As you can see, Jeff Lacey's P2 car coming around the carousel in front of him. Not the carousel, come on. Coming down to Thunder Valley, I should say.
So it looks like Lyndon Bingaman is back out on track, and yes, he has 11-second gap now on the BMW of Stein.
And I believe the only car, not the... Oh no, he did pit.
So yes, Luciano Cazzo's strategy of doing that pit stop early on has paid off for him. He has managed a 35-second gap on the car of Lyndon Bingaman behind him. So great move there from
Luciano, as he's got half hour left now in the race to hot lap and hopefully not have to make a second stop. And hopefully his tires will hold out. I think he pitted with 45 minutes left, so yeah, that should be interesting. As we just see the yellow BMW of Jared Svetek in the distance behind him. Between those two, we have Bingaman, Stein, and Filippone, and those guys have about a minute in between the three of them. So wide gaps, a lot of open air. As we watch this battle happen here. In case you're wondering what happened, Evan Gramke has now made the pass on Mohamed Audia. And we'll see if Audia can make the effort to reverse that change in position. And like that, Audia is back out in front of Evan. Evan with a little bit of an inside-outside move on him.
Trying to make it stick.
Is Audia as they come into the keyhole. Evan not giving up easily though. Pushing maybe a little bit too deep into that corner and losing some time.
Looks like he's now door to door with Dan Dietering. No, that's not Dan Dietering at all. Who is that? Is it Ian McClure? No. He's stepping on Ricardo Costa. Oh.
That's who it is. It's P3 of Rudolf Stein. That's who's in that battle right now.
So he's a full lap ahead and should not be fighting with these guys.
As you can see, they let him through. And Evan capitalizes on that by jumping out in front of Audia.
As we have another off track here. Was that Evan Gramke that came off track there? It was. Yes, so Evan sliding off track and losing about 6 seconds to Audia in that one.
Up at the front of the track, things have set themselves correct again, where Theo Insbury is back on the lead of the race, with Theo Lupu nipping at his heels as they come down this long straight into the right-hand corner. Two of them picking very different lines as they come around the cresting left hand. Down the hill, Theo getting in within 0.3 seconds of the Insbury. These two Daytona cars have been battling quite happily at the front. Jeff Lacey was in there for a segment, and he's made up a lot of time. He had a drive-through penalty, and he's back within 11 seconds of the lead car. So great racing from Jeff Lacey to make that time up. We'll see what he can do in the next 26 minutes.
Welcome, Nigel.
If you're just joining us, we've got 26 minutes left at Mid-Ohio. We are currently racing P2 and GT2 class cars.
we started with 15 in the GT2 class and 9 in the P2 class, and we are down to 8 and 12. So we've had a little bit of fall off. Some to damage, others to just dropping off the game completely. We are currently watching the battle for first place in the P2 class between Theo Lupu and Theo Winsbury. As Muhammad Odia, I think, came into the pit a little bit faster. We'll keep an eye on what's going on with him. He's running almost 90 kilometers an hour into that pit, so hopefully he turned his pit limiter on. Back up at the front. And being rear-engined, these Daytona prototypes exhaust is quite short. And thus you get a very interesting engine note as they fly around this Ohio circuit. You hear a bit of turbo chatter as they make their way up towards the keyhole. So Lupu not giving up that easily. Still holding within a second of Winsbury. Lap traffic will be a deciding factor for these front runners. Hopefully Winsbury can make the most of it and put some distance on Lupu. Your race leader for the GT2 class is Luciano Cazzo. He's got a 35-second gap on Lyndon Bingaman, who is a full lap ahead of Louis Dominguez's P2 car. And from there we've got Rudolf Stein, so almost a lap between P2 and P3 for these cars. So Corvettes appear to be the faster vehicle around Mid-Ohio right now. Leave it to the North Americans to make a car fast in North America. Jumping back up, we watch Theo Lupu as he's starting to make the gap here on Jared Svetek's yellow BMW, that Deutsche Post BMW, getting out of the way and not realizing, yes, there's a battle for P1 in front of me here. I should probably not hold that up. All three cars getting out of that corner safely. Down further, Victor Paz is now making his approach. We'll hop on board with Victor. You see the aero kit on these cars is quite interesting. Got a huge fence over top of each wheel to pull air out, make a great cooling effect for the brakes, as well as downforce for the car. Nice thing about taking all the hot air off the brakes is it throws it over top of the car itself, which actually creates a better airflow, reducing drag on the car. So these things get slippier the hotter the tires get and the hotter the brakes get. Taking a little bit of extra curb there as he passes the yellow BMW of Svetek, and disappearing behind that giant wing is the yellow Svetek. And here's exactly what Lupu's looking for is lap traffic. We have the P1 runner there of Picasso, as well as the Porsche of Bernie Puebla. Wreaking a little bit of havoc on these front two cars. Those GT2 cars are not obligated to get out of the way. They're just supposed to race their line and allow the faster prototype cars through. And a prime example of what's just happened, that exchange between Ensbury and Cazzo. There's nice clean stuff there. So back to racing for those front two cars of the P2 class. And as far as close battles go in the P2 class or GT2 class, Ian McClure is just resting at about 4 seconds in behind Derek McCord, who is, again, 4 seconds behind Evan Gramke. So those three are riding quite tight. As we jump back up to the lead of the race here, Lupu making up almost a second on Ensbury from lap traffic as they make their way down into turn 2. So heavy braking. You'll see those rotors glowing under the stress. See what happens here with Theo Ensbury as he is being pushed on by Lupu out and around the red and gray Porsche. And in front of them is Luke Filippone's Corvette. The two of them trying to stay off that yellow sausage curb, which is known to upset a vehicle and will put you off track or worse out of the race if you catch it too much. As Ensbury gets a little bit squirrely there onto the tail of that Corvette. He'll be happy to get around him on this front straight, and Filippone opening the door nicely for him. Not what you want to be seeing from the P1 position with 20 minutes left in the race, as the hard-charging Lupu pushes up on Evan Gramke, or on Theodore Ensbury. I was just looking down at my board here and I saw Evan Gramke's name light up because he is currently putting the attack on Ian McClure. So he's knocked 3 seconds out of McClure and is pushing on P8 now. These two Porsches have been back and forth quite a bit on the race. Evan did have a bit of off-track time, which cost him about 20 seconds, but he's made up a lot of that. So he's doing great in that rough to catch up that time. Oh, both of them going wide up in the front here. I keep seeing the numbers turn red for Lupu and Ensbury as they make their way into the third sector here. Out and around the carousel, very similar lines. And down the front. If you can't tell, the Honda has a huge presence at this racetrack because pretty much every other sign is Honda. For those folks watching what's going on in the background. Yes, you can see that Ensbury does like to have a bit of a loose setup in his car, and he will have it slide for him a little bit. There is a little bit of handshaking going on between computers, though, so you may see more than what's actually occurring in the car. But yes, these two both like to have their cars running a bit loose. Makes them fast, but it also makes them teeter on danger because you put too much foot into it and you're out of the race. The flashing assassin, Odia, pushing Dan Dietering into the inside of that corner over the sausage curb, getting himself up into P10 as he pushes pushes around the keyhole. I don't think you're going to see him overtaking Evan Gramke again, as he does have 24 seconds behind him and only 17 minutes to do so, so we may see Evan safe for now. Further up the board, the battle for P7. Ian McClure is chasing down Derek McCorg as these two German cars come down the long turn, into the final straight. And things getting tighter as Evan Gramke is starting to join the mix. You can see him just in the background there. He's closed now in within a second of McClure. So there's now less than a second in between these three. Derek McCord, Ian McClure, and Evan Gramke. as the BMW and 2 Porsches make their way down that back straight. Evan Gramke went a little bit wide into that corner, so he's going to lose time there. But he has made up almost 10 seconds on these two, so them battling out has allowed him to catch up quite considerably. We may even see him ahead of them if he can continue this push. Ricardo Costa being slapped with yet another slowdown penalty for abusing the track limit, so he probably cut track somewhere to give himself an advantage, and the steward said no thank you. And pushing again is McClure on Derek McCord. Derek McCord being steadfast, holding his position, blocking that ideal race line for me and McClure. And some great racing here as we approach the 15-minute mark. Making their way up the hill now. We are inside a second between these 3 cars. It's a match of braking after these long straights. If you can outbrake the driver, not lock them up, jostle for position before the turn in. Early move here by McClure on McCord. He does manage to get out and around him, so now we have P7 being battled again as they go door to door into probably the most hair-raising part. Evan Gramke unfortunately going a little bit wide there and losing a little bit more time to these two. But Ian McClure making it stick. So overtake on Derek McCorg. Victor Paz's nightmares back on the track. Jeff Lacey closing in. Now inside a second of Paz. He's going to be pushing it as hard as he can to catch up and get himself back onto the podium. So even though they had an off track and a drive-through, he has pulled himself back within 10 seconds of the lead car, which is impressive when you consider you got to slow down for the entire length of pit lane to under 90 kilometers an hour. And the unshakable shadow of Innsbury in Lupu here, as Innsbury takes a little bit of that sausage curb, losing some time to Lupu. Around the carousel onto the front straight. We are 57 laps into this race with just over 10 minutes left. We've got 13 minutes left in this race, as your 2 front runners are divided by less than half a second. Behind them, the battle for P3 rages on with 10-second gap, but there's less than a quarter of a second in between these 2 cars. As that Porsche GTR2 Porsche slows down Paz ever so slightly. Jeff Lacey will look to capitalize on this as they head towards the keyhole. Out on the outside, Victor again with his proficiency under braking, keeping that car gap ahead. Ooh, clattering over the curb a little bit and losing some speed. This may open the door. Yes, it does. Jeff Lacey will push himself up into 3rd position here as Victor loses out. Something as simple as coming off just that little bit and touching grass has opened up almost a half-second gap now between Lacey and Paz. And as we've seen before, Victor will not let this just go. He's going to push as hard as he can to make that time back up. He's going to search for any hole in Lacey's driving and exploit him on it, as the 2 of them run just ever so wide here on that corner. Paz straddling that sausage. Theo Winsbury and Lupu both coming around the front straight as they come in behind Muhammad Audia, who is busy cleaning up the pylons on the outside of the track there. Audia, beloved to the stewards, always waits after the race to help clean up. back on board with Victor Paz as he's working to make that time back that he lost from something as simple as touching the curb. As he drives almost off, you can hear a bit of grass and dirt coming up off the tires as he hits the white line. Victor sawing through the BMWs here as he's working the wheel, trying to find time on Jeff Lacey, now charging away from him. Jeff's made almost 1.5 seconds up on Victor. As the two come around the carousel. Fantastic stuff from Jeff Lacey. Again, making up almost 12 seconds after a drive-through penalty on the lead two cars. Luciano Cazzo and his Corvette is going to be lapping the P2 car of Lyndon Bingaman. That's Lyndon there in front of your screen. An absolutely stellar drive here from Cazzo. He hasn't put a foot wrong all race, and it shows here. He's got almost a 90-second, actually over a 90-second gap on the car in front of him. So almost a amazing stuff there from Cazzo. Down the GT2 board, Evan Gramke, Derek McCord, and Ian McClure are battling it out as we see that yellow BMW of Jaron Svetek, who is actually a lap ahead of these three, so he doesn't have to worry too much about being overtaken by Evan. Evan will just be doing himself the courtesy of unlapping himself from Jared. So a little bit of off-track excursions will have bitten both these guys, but both racing to the very end, which is great to see. Inside 10 minutes from the end of this race, we should start seeing a little bit of those final lap shenanigans that always seem to come out as the drivers make their final push for position. Theo Winsbury looks like he's found another gear up in the lead as he makes almost a 1-second gap on Lupu. Jeff Lacey, on the other hand, has completely forgotten that Victor Pax is on the track with him and has managed to put up a 6-second gap now. So he's comfortably going to finish in third place if he can keep it on track for the next 8 minutes. We do have an off track. I think it's Dan Dietering or Ricardo. Yeah, it's Ricardo Costa. So off track again, Ricardo Costa. Causes some yellow flags here for drivers passing by as Lyndon Bingaman is coming up on him. It's the yellow and black of Lyndon Bingaman and Jeff Lacey behind him. So hopefully Ricardo can nurse this car around the track to get to the finish line as he goes wide again and off into the grass. I suspect there's some heavy damage on that car. It's been fighting with him all race. We've just crested over 60 laps here. We're into the 62nd lap, making our way to the 63rd. As we approach the 7-minute mark remaining in this Mid-Ohio 1.5-hour endurance race, North America Race Room making up a majority of the cars you're seeing on the track tonight. There are a couple of outliers, but I would say 90% of the racers out here are from the North American Race Room Discord. If you're looking for a group of people to race with, they're a great bunch. They are currently hosting a championship race. Look up on the Discord to find out more. I think there's a couple open spots left. It's an 8 race series. Definitely something worth watching. Definitely something worth racing. As we watch Theo Winsbury pushing into T1 here, and Theo Lupu using that Porsche to catch up, get himself back in within a half a second. We've only had 4 retirements tonight. 1 from the P2 class and 3 from the GT3 class or GT2 class. And we watched Ricardo Costa pull into the pits. I thought he had retired, but he's not. He's sticking with it. With 5 minutes left in the race, he must need a little splash of fuel, as he's going to make his way back out on the track. Looks like Evan Gramke may have gone off track again. Or Ian McClure has gone off track, sorry. Yeah, so Ian McClure just had a little bit of a spin there. Opened the door, and Derek McCorg and Evan Gramke said, "Thank you very much." And they have both gained a position from that little misstep with 5 minutes left. Evan Gramke, sensing that the end of the race is near, is going to start putting the push on Derek McCorg's BMW. As we click into the 5-minute window. Mark Sutton as well has found another gear as he starts closing the gap on Diego Junges. These two within 0.8 of a second of each other. And up at the very front, Theo Lupu down within almost 0.1 of a second of Insbury. He's charging on him hard, trying to force a mistake, as those two are coming into the lap traffic of Mark Sutton and Diego Junges. So this should get interesting. These cars are now in the same class, doing almost the same pace, have the ability to get away. We'll see what happens here when these 4 come together. Theo Lupu using that drag to get himself up right on the bumper of Insbury, trying to go outside, late on the brakes, both of them. Ooh, looks like Mark Sutton might have gone a bit wide there. Yes, Mark Sutton had gone off track, and that's going to be a chance for Theo Lupu now, using that distraction on Insbury as 2 of them come together and touch. In behind, oh my God, in behind Junges, Theo using that using that Mistral to his advantage, now putting him in between the previous leader, Insbury. Junges is going to have to get out of the way here soon. If you are shown a blue flag, you're supposed to have 4 turns to get out of the way of the car that is currently trying to push past you. And as you can see, this is distressing Insbury. He's now down 1.1 from Lupu. So an interesting turn of events there as that lap traffic came into play. Theo Lupu now up to 1.2 seconds, 1.5 seconds now on Theo Insbury, who's going to be looking for a pass here on that Mistral. And there you have it. So now away goes Theo. More lap traffic for Insbury as Lupu in the foreground starts to break for the keyhole. So a fantastic strategic move from Theo Lupu, and using that Mistral to get in between. Kind of drive a wedge between him and the flying car of Theo Insbury. Two minutes remaining. As we find Evan Gramke now within a second of McCord. These two working hard to determine who's going to come in P7. And they've exchanged positions quite a few times. Mohamed Audia down behind them was contending with them earlier, but a pit stop error for him finds him almost 20 seconds behind that fight. We are on to the final lap. We're going to hop on board with Theo Lupu as he makes his way around the track one last time. in his blue Daytona prototype. So from the looks of things, the prototypes were the car to beat out there today. The Mistral's very close and behind. And the Radical Jeff Lacey being the outlier and making up time on this front battle. He went from over 20 seconds now down into within 9 seconds of the front two cars. As the lap traffic, the P1 position of Akazo coming together there with Theo Lupu on this final lap. Ensbury not far behind him. As C3 come into the final group of corners. That Corvette of Akazo has opened a bit of a gap again for Lupu. Into Sector 3, into the final 3 corners. As he pushes around the carousel. Ensbury hot on his heels. Last corner, race winner, Theo Lupu, followed by Theo Ensbury. Jeff Lacey taking up 3rd place. Outstanding drive from him. For the GT2 class, Luciano Akazo, Lenton Bigeman, who's a lap down from him. Should be coming across the finish line now. Commanding lead there from Luciano. I think he had to take another pit stop because he was over a lap ahead, so yes, P2 as these cars pull in and everyone starts slowing down. There you have it. Theo Lupu, your driver of the night. Fastest lap going to Jeff Lacey. Absolute flyer of a 1:18.599. Great stuff from the top 3 there. Down in the GT2 class, Akazo, Bigeman, and Stein making up your top 3 there. A bit of a margin between the top 3. However, that commanding drive from Akazo, setting him out in the Thrustmaster Corvette as P1. Unfortunately, we did have 4 cars DNF. Brian Ingles, TJ Sakiocho. Oh my goodness, sorry. Sakocchio. Caleb Gons, and Gavin Lambert retiring early on. I'm Scotty G. That was Mid-Ohio. Hopefully you had fun watching. If you did, hit the like button. Do some subscribing, wherever the hell it is, and we'll see you next week.